Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Big Down. This is your boy Bobby Hill. Hope y'all doing good this afternoon. Hope your hump day is going good. Like I say I hope you one step closer to your goals. Hope you one step closer to your dreams. One step closer to what you're trying to accomplish. This positive in life. I'd like to give a shout out to my lovely wife Sandra. Miss Sandra Yvette. She's at work right now. She's working in she got a new job at the hospital. She's loving it very much. She's, when I talk to her a little bit, have to give her pep talks and stuff. So she sort of overwhelming because this is big. If you know anything about the hospitals here, it's big hospitals, but there's like four hospitals in one area, and it looks like the downtown of a city in the United States, but it's just a hospital. If I show it, it's amazing. But it's big, it's a lot of information, a lot of places to go. And, it's a little overwhelming. So I have to remind her that, you can do it. You got it. You got this. It's easy work, So, you know, you got it. You can do this. And give another shout out to my man, Louis Jenkins. We chopped it up a little bit this morning on the session. It calls Brothers Talk. You know, talked about, like I said, it's chopped it up about, problems that we have to go through as men. Very, 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 very nice session right there. It was a good fellowship session. We got a chance to, it's always good to talk to another brother. Get a chance to chop it up, talk about intelligent things, not, stuff that'll make us better as people. Not talking about all stuff that'll tear us down, stuff that'll make us stuff that'll get us locked up or get us scared. We don't talk about all that. We talk about nothing but positive stuff. So yeah, shout out to him. Watch his podcast, let's talk about it. Go give him a like and subscribe, man. He's doing his thing up here, doing his thing, brother from Philly. Very positive, very knowledgeable. Very he just I can't speak enough about him, man. Can't speak enough about him. So we was talking about, like I said, we was talking about issues a little bit about men's role in society. You know, this men's role in relationships and stuff. Very good, very 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 good conversation. He was talking about. He was saying, "I know you." We was talking about certain things. He was like, "Man, I know you going. You go on your talk about on your podcast." Yeah, actually, yes. There was one. We was talking about a few things, and the gist I was getting to is like us as men, man. We got to be useful. Start being useful, man. You know, other than having sex, man. Other than that right there, because that's everywhere. You know, that's that's not that don't keep relationships together. That don't. And because you can do that, don't mean that that person is destined to stay with you. Cause they can get that from anywhere. It's all about what else you can bring to the table. You know, now, as a matter of fact, I ain't gonna. I hate using that term. Because it ain't about bringing that to a table. It's about you and your partner getting together and y'all building your own damn table. That's what it's all about. So I feel like, but us as men now, like I said, you don't know when you might find that someone like that person. It might take you a while to try to find. You might have to go through a lot of hurt, a lot of breakups, a lot of whatever. A lot of misses. So don't tell how long it might take you. But until you find that, you want to be able to live a good life without having to you know call and ask people to do stuff that you know how to do. Learn how to fix stuff. You know, learn how to figure stuff out. Learn how to cook something. Ain't talking about just on the grill. I'm like, learn how to cook something in the kitchen. You know, learn. You clean up. Don't learn to keep yourself clean, keep yourself neat. Keep your house neat, keep your place neat. Learn how to do that. Don't let society make you think there's something wrong with that. That a man knowing how to clean his house, knowing how to cook something, knowing how to do stuff, making him that makes him less masculine and stuff. That's BS. Do not fall for that BS, man. The more you know as a man makes you more masculine. You know, the more you know. I'm not saying you're gonna know to use it, but you know, the more you know, the better you are. You never know. You might need it at a time that it might be very crucial in your life. It's good that you have them skills. You know, it's good to acquire skills in life, man. Don't just, put yourself in a box and just learn, do this one thing, be a robot your whole life, man. Learn how to go outside your damn comfort zone. Learn how to do stuff. You know, for instance, one random day, I can't even tell you the date or when. It was sometime during the week, but and one day, I planted a tree, baked the cake, and changed the alternator the same day. You know, I don't expect y'all to do what I do. I'm just giving you an example, man. Learn how to do stuff, man. Learn how to, I remember I was driving trucks, and I was, I can admit it now, but probably wasn't the safest thing to do. But there was times where I was, driving trucks and helping my daughter out with a math homework while I was driving. Stuff like that. You got to be, you got to be resourceful. You got to learn, do, be useful. Other than that, you know. And this is man, we can't be afraid to let our woman, can't be afraid to let our woman, take the lead a little bit. That's part of being a great leader is knowing that, you don't have all the answers. Your wife or your significant other, you know, may have the answer to your problem, but you got to be man enough to say, okay, since y'all are on the same page, y'all are as one, y'all are a unit. So you should be able to trust your old lady, like I said, or your significant other to, you know, take care of this situation. Lead from behind. Let's make sure they're safe, while they're doing that. Because in the end, you're benefiting just as well as their benefit. So y'all both are benefiting. And that's what it's all about. It's not all about what other people trying to label y'all as. It's not all about what other people think about y'all because at the end of the day, when y'all laying in the bed at night, it's just y'all two. It's not everybody else. So who cares about their opinion? You know, you wake up in the morning and your partner can't breathe or coughing bad or got a fever and stuff. Everybody else ain't gonna be there trying to help them out. It's gonna be you. So that's the only opinion that should matter. Who cares about what other people think? Stop worrying about what other people think about your relationship. Man, you do what you need to do to, make your relationship happy. Don't worry about what your neighbor doing. Don't worry about what your friends doing. It's all about what your partner, what y'all do to make y'all relationship work. Don't be telling everybody what y'all got going on. Because when you let people in a relationship, people who try to come between your relationship, especially if they feel like that you are doing your relationship is stronger than their relationship, or if they have a relationship at all. They might try to, do anything to make you instead of being inspired and trying to lift themselves up, they'll do what it takes to bring you down to their level. So you got to be careful of that. So don't, stop. You don't have to broadcast everything. You don't have to let everybody know. You don't have to let everybody in. If you let them in, let them in. Let them in on the porch. Let them on the porch. You don't gotta let them in the house. Show them a little bit. You don't gotta let them in the house. Let them on the porch. Y'all got to do. I mean, like I said, in a relationship, man, y'all got to, it's all about you and your significant other, man. Y'all might be doing things. Don't worry about. It ends our relationship. You might find yourself doing things you're like, man, I ain't believe I was doing this, man. You know, sure. Y'all lean on each other. You know, you think she like damn getting a toenail clipper and cutting that big ugly black toenail of yours every damn 2 weeks? You think she like doing that? Hell no. Just like you don't like them getting one of them files and scrubbing down her bunion that she got. Y'all don't like doing that, but you do it. Why? Because that's because that's what do y'all. It makes them feel good. It makes her feel good. That gives her relief. So y'all do what you got to do, man. Shit, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You can't listen to everybody because everybody don't have their best. Everybody don't have your best interests at hand. So that's why you can't listen to everybody. That's why you can't worry about what other people think because other people don't have your best interests. You have your best interests. Hopefully, your significant other has your best interests. You know, and you have their best interests. Don't tell everybody what you're doing. Don't even tell your damn kids what you're doing. Y'all keep it between your two. You keep it between each other. You do what you have to do to, make yourself, y'all get through the day. You know, it's hard out here in the world, and as far as, you know, like I said, a couple of subjects we, we talked about, but one thing I would say that we're talking about men being emotionally unavailable and stuff, but what I would say is for men is to not. I know it's hard sometimes because this world beats us up, man. I know women might think of this and say, "Oh, that's a cop out. You making an excuse or whatever." Nah, it's real out here, man. No matter what color you are. Now, some races, may have it more severe than other, but it's all common. 'Cause me and men out in this world, man, we all go through the same thing, got the same expectations, the same criticisms, the same whatever pressures. It may be spoken in a different language, a different dialect, or different words being used, but the damn pressures and everything are the same. Being a man out here in this society, they make it hard, make it hard. And part of the problem is you can't have, I don't care. People get offended, I don't care, but you can't have that. You can't have women defining what a man is, because they don't want us defining what we think a woman is. So it goes, you can't stop letting them define what you are. You do it, you know, you know what you need to do. You know what you need to do to survive out here in this world. You know what you need to do, you know. But also say is don't you have to let your guard down too. Don't be so hardened and so intent on, living the way someone taught you to live. I ain't saying that way is wrong, but it could be edited. It could be like, things could be tweaked in it, like you got to realize the person that taught you that the era in which they grew up was different than the era now. So the pressures and the dangers was different then. So they were raising us to prepare for a life with dangers that they experienced, you know. So they got to realize that you take the knowledge that you was given and you disseminate it and you go through it and you figure out what works for you best. I ain't saying you don't have to listen to everything, but you take some of that knowledge, you take bits and pieces of that knowledge out and apply it to your life. You know, I mean, and don't be afraid. I, one thing I always saying like you need two parents. It don't matter if they're together or not, but you need that too. You need that man that kid's life to tell them like you can do it. Get up, you can do it. So what? You got hurt. You heal. Get up. You can do it. Believe in yourself and stuff. Believe in yourself. Believe you're stronger than this and stuff. You need that. You need that push that we give you. Also need the other. And that balance. You need your mom to say when you do fall short. Your mom will say, "Okay, it's okay, baby. I still love you. It's okay. I still believe in you. You're still special. You can do it. Just practice harder. Pick yourself up. Practice harder." And it's okay. If you're hurting right now, you want to cry, it's okay to cry. Wipe them tears away after a little while and start working harder. So you do need both of your parents. You know, you do need both of your parents. So, like I said, it's just, as men, we have to, like I said, we have to learn how to, more so now, we have to learn how to, survive on our own without having the assistance. And we have to learn how to survive and have a quality life. I ain't talking about just surviving, living on the bare minimum and stuff, man. You got to learn how to, provide a good life for yourself. Whether you with somebody or not, you got to learn how to do that. Learn how to, be that, be that strong person, be that dependable person, be that confident person. But you also don't be too strong, too confident, too independent that you can't allow somebody to come in and, and let them in and share that with them or let them share their life with you. You always got them, but you don't say you let anybody in there because they smile at you pretty or whatever. We got nice physical features don't mean you let them into you or whatever. Let make them earn it, but allow them to earn it. You know, allow them to earn it. But like I said, us as men, man, we got to, and like I said, don't be afraid to be strong. Don't let society think it's wrong to be, to show your strength and stuff. And I would say strength is not all about, weight room strength and physical strength either. It's about, your mental strength, your emotional strength. Don't be afraid to show people, man. Sometimes people need to see someone that's strong and stuff to inspire them. They see somebody lead by example, so don't be shy to it. If you sometimes the situation needs for you to step up and be an emotional leader or be emotionally strong. Because sometimes you need to be physically strong. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to be unapologetic. Don't worry about what people think. Because people, like I said, people are always going to have something negative to say about you. You know, as I always say, someone find the cure to cancer, they're going to be somebody be like, God damn, why it take you so long? It's always somebody out there to criticize. So don't worry about it, man. Don't worry about people criticizing you. Don't worry about, you know, don't worry about it. And we got this North Carolina shirt on because, well, I got to practice what I preach. I got this Carolina shirt on because I got word that somebody thought that I had abandoned North Carolina because I'm in Texas. So look, but yeah, you can't be worried about what people say because people are always going to have something to say. You just have confidence in yourself and what you're doing. You have your own self confidence. Nothing anyone can say can bring you down. But you have to have confidence in yourself first. Don't sit here and look for everyone else to give you confidence. You have to have confidence in yourself in whatever you're doing. You know. And if you damn fall short, practice. Get up and practice and try again. Don't be afraid to fail and get up and try again. You know. If you're too afraid to fail, you're not going to try as hard. You got to be afraid to fall. You can't be afraid to fall short. You give it your all. And whatever you do in life, you know. So, like I said, it was a good. I had a good time with. I had a good time with Lewis, man. It was just, a great time, and I'm looking forward to having him on my show. Tell him when I get my first, when I do, my first guest. He's gonna be my first guest. I'm trying to, get some more people up here too. I'm gonna love having guests up here, man. We sit up here and chop it up, and like I said, it's fellowship, man, and that's, just that's how, we grow stronger as a society, man. Just communication and just showing love and communication and just, spreading cheer, lifting each other up, man. That's all I'm trying to do. Is trying to lift people up. I ain't trying to I ain't trying to tear nobody down. I ain't trying to sit, but I am trying to, inform and let people know like what. things that I might have seen and experienced through my standpoint, through my eyes. Like I said, I'm not sitting up there, I'm not making nothing up, and I don't sit there and lie or whatever. Like I said, if someone has a different opinion, feel free. I got a chat box right here. You can chat me. You can chat, you go into the video and put a comment or whatever. Just let me know. We can debate it. I'd gladly get in debate and tell you and explain everything I say up there, and tell you why I said it, and tell you the conditions in which I was in the situation in which I explained. So let me know. I'm afraid. Like I said, we're here to talk. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. You know, that's the name of my man podcast. Go check him out, Lewis Jenkins. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Here's one. I don't. I like. I said when I talk about race stuff. Sometimes I talk about it in the context of like stuff I grew up with, seen or heard or whatever, like that. But no, separate genuinely separate try to bash people and stuff, and I don't do that. Even online and stuff, I don't do stuff like that. But one thing one thing that I seen on like Facebook, and I know some of the it's just people out there tripping, but I think it was talking about. They always bringing up Trump and Obama. I don't know why they always doing that. It was talking about no, I know what it was. It wasn't Trump and Obama. Excuse me, wasn't saying that. It was a black man saying, black man. I forgot. I don't know if it was a black American or somewhere of African descent. But it was from somewhere. He was saying that made a comment that black people could be talking about. I guess he's talking about white people. Black man could be a white man. Talking about anything, anywhere from physics to anything on the field or whatever like that. So of course, that's going to spark up, it's going to spark up white outrage. That's what it was. It was on that post. It was just outrage. Them little boy, them little young men, old men, whatever. When white men got into their feelings real bad. So one of them made a comment like talking about what about fatherhood, So that right there is always a sticking point. So and I thought about that. I thought about whether I was going to talk about it or not, but it just stuck with me. So especially when I hate this narrative that's I don't this that is a media driven narrative. The fact that saying that black men are absentee fathers and all this and stuff, you know, like creating kids out of wedlock and everything. We do have that. We create kids out of wedlock as in any race, and yes, we have a small percentage of our men that don't, for whatever reason, aren't there, as in every race. But for somehow for us, it's looked at like is thrown into a spotlight, like somehow what we do was so bad. What we do is so much worse than what other ones do, especially when other ones do it at a higher rate than us. That's what I'm saying. That's throughout my life, how many times I've seen I've seen white women with kids, and all them kids weren't by the same man. How many times you done seen that? How many times you done ask, you ask them like, what the father, I ain't seen him. He ain't been around since whatever. He left when he was a kid. He left when he was, how many times you done heard that story? But for somehow we get painted there. Especially when we sitting up here trying to, try, we sitting up here, excuse me. Sorry about that. Got too excited. Sorry about that. We sit here trying to be in the kids' lives, and for whatever reason, you know, by the fault of someone else, that we're not allowed to be there, or it's been made hard for us to be there because, we don't get along with the mother and stuff like that. But they count us as absentee fathers, for whatever reason. So yeah, but they don't look at they don't talk about other people, other races with more than us. I'm just saying, very funny. And then I ain't- I want to get into the ins and outs of that because that's a whole nother conversation. All I'm saying that sparked that piqued my interest right there because it's funny how they always use that against us like we're bad fathers and we're actually stronger fathers. We're actually stronger fathers because we try to teach our children, damn it, compassion. Teach them how to be, strong, loyal, compassionate. Try hard, give it your best. Don't take no for an answer. Don't take nothing off of someone. Don't accept someone telling you that you can't do it. Try hard. If you fail, try harder. So don't sit up here, I reject that. I reject what was said, and I will always reject that. But that's what that's the person out here being a man, especially being a man of color. It's doubly hard because as well as being a man, especially me, I'm a man of color, and I'm a man of a lot of color, and even amongst the men of color, the men of a lot of color were treated differently than the men of not a lot of color. So, yeah, take that as you may, but I'm talking about. But like I said, I enjoy myself with him, and hopefully, like I said, I'm just trying to branch out, network and stuff, and be having more guests up here. And we talk about different topics. Like I said, I got a wide range of the things to talk about. Man, I can talk about almost anything. If I have knowledge on it, we can talk about it. So so I try to keep up with try to keep up with current events, try to keep up with things in society. Trying to keep up with our political system and what's going on because that affect our everyday lives. I try to keep up what's going on in the geopolitics and what's going on the other side of this world. So so crazy idiot leader that we got up here doing stupid stuff, and how that affects us every day. So yeah, I try to keep it up on everything, and ain't so we sit here and chat it up and talk about anything that needs deserves to be talked about. We can sit up here and talk about it. So there are times I'm gonna get personal. Talk about my hometown, talk about some of the people that influenced me in my life, or some of the people that I grew up with. Just want to show them that I ain't forgot you. The love's still there. So yeah, so yeah. That being said, like I get shout out to my man Atlanta. We give a shout out to Willie Parker. I give a shout out to my brothers growing up. Anthony Laverne Henry, Stephen, Stephon Henry. Give a shout out to all the Darius facing, Charlie facing, you know, um, Larry Keith McIntyre, Leonard McIntyre, all the ones that were my brothers growing up that, that taught me that I didn't have, I wasn't, fortunate to have a brother, raised with a brother. They were like my big brothers growing up. Learn how to play sports and you know, just taught to me that learn that toughness, learn that climb a tree, fall down, hit your head, get back up, brush it off, shake it off, keep on going. That's where we learned all that from. Man. Just learn how to play. They taught me how to play baseball. You know, learn how to play football with them. Learn how to play basketball. So yes, they were my brothers. All of them. They helped me out. They helped me shape me, and a young man helped me become tough and realize that I was a lot tougher than I thought it was. I was really a lot tougher. So salute to all my brothers that I got to do more than the ones that grew up in my neighborhood. Man, give a shout out to my man Jazz Joe Killett. I know him since he lived on Matthew Street, and I know he remember that. You know. Shout out to my man Scooter Banks 6'9". Shout out, he was the man back in the day, man. He was the man. He was a great athlete back in the day. I was a young kid. I was 2 years under him, man. And he befriended me. He took me under his wing and stuff, and you know, you give love to him. You know, you love him more, but I only have a few. I don't want to be up here all day. So if I didn't get you, I'll get you. I get you. Shout out to my man. Shout out to my, to Zani Miguel. Like I said, just stay strong. Stay strong. Stay strong. You know. With that being said, I'd like to thank y'all for being here with me today. And, try to do this 3 times a week. I try to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Try to get back on schedule. I'll be back. I'll be back Friday. Till then, y'all take care of yourself. I love all of y'all. Y'all take time out to hit subscribe, hit like, hit your notifications so you can let you know when I'm up here. For everybody show love and everybody that get take a few moments out of their busy day to check me out. I appreciate you. I love you, and like I always say, kiss your kids. Kiss your kids, kiss your loved ones. Don't be afraid to tell them how you feel. Don't be afraid to give them a hug. Let them know how you feel. Because you never know this day and age, things change at a drop of a dime. I love all of y'all. Y'all have a good afternoon and a good evening and a good night. Buenas tardes and buenas noches.